Seems like we've been so busy behind the scenes doing new things and implementing new tricks into Trackify and working with our users and our clients to implement them, that we haven't really gotten around to making many Facebook Lives in the recent weeks. Okay, so this Facebook Live is the first one in a little series of Facebook Lives that I will make this week and next week regarding the big new buzz in Facebook groups, which is server-side pixel events or server-side API events. We're going to talk about how they work and how you can benefit from them. Again, this is a series of several Facebook Lives. I'm hoping that you'll join me for several of them or for all of them. And next week, I'm planning on doing that on Tuesday. We're going to have a full-fledged webinar about the server-side API events, so I can give you the whole lowdown of everything A to Z and how you can really best benefit from them and in your Facebook ads. So before we go any further here, let me just double check and make sure that everything is working. I actually just messed up the first try half an hour ago because a couple of new cool things are here in Be Live, and we're actually streaming now to Facebook and to YouTube at the same time. And with that said, I had a few things that were selected wrong, and so sorry for that. So if you've been on the other Facebook Live and you're kind of waiting for me there, sorry that I missed you there. Let's see, I want to just pull up something. So number one, if you are on the live stream right now, please go ahead and leave a comment. If you're in one of the groups or other pages that I've shared this video, this live stream to, go ahead and click through to the original video so I can actually see your comments coming in. And what I'm looking for here right now is there was actually one question that was posted on the previous post that I had there. And that post, or that looks like that post is no longer available here. Okay, well, sorry about that. Then you're just going to have to get your question in again. So again, click through to the main location of the video. Don't leave a question or a comment in one of the shared groups, but rather go to the original location so I can see your comment. So if you are online right now, and if you can hear me and see me all right, just say hi, let me know where you are listening from and how everything is going for you. So obviously, e-commerce has had a real boost, and we have lots and lots of users that have been smashingly successful. We've just increased our database servers again to make sure that we can handle the traffic that is coming from our users, and we're bolstering our capacity so that we can be well prepared for October, November, Black Friday sales and traffic that is going to come at that time. So we are actually really excited about how everything is working, how everything is going. We are currently working in Trackify on the third iteration of implementing support for server-side pixel events. And this third iteration is going to be extremely robust, so it doesn't miss any events ever. So it's going to be really exciting. All right, so I see that we do have some reach. We have some people live on the stream. That's awesome. And, you know, again, I haven't made any Facebook Lives for a long time, so I don't expect many people to join us live. But if you do, if you can hear me right now, just leave a comment, say hi, and just confirm that you can hear my audio well and that you can see okay. That'd be awesome. So with that said, let's just jump in a little bit. What is there to know about the big buzz server-side API events? Well, in a nutshell, and I'm going to unpack that over the course of this Facebook Live, in a nutshell, what happens with server-side events is they're being sent directly from our server to Facebook, as opposed to being sent from the user's browser to Facebook. So that is the main big systematic difference. And we're going to unpack what the impact is of this difference of what difference does it make if a Facebook Pixel event is sent to the Facebook Pixel through the browser when the user reaches the thank you page versus when it's sent to Facebook directly from the server. There are some differences. There are huge advantages, and there are a couple of drawbacks. And the cool thing is that they're actually going to work in tandem, right? When you set it up correctly, and it's actually very, very easy to set it up correctly in this in the second iteration that is currently live in Trackify, and in the third iteration that we're working on. It will be live in a couple of days. So it's super easy to set up. It literally just takes a click of an extra checkbox to activate server-side pixel events in Trackify, and then you're good to go. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this first, how easy it is to activate, and then we're going to go into the details and the nitty-gritty. Okay, so let me see here. This, all right, great. Now back to my screen here. So show in stream. All right, there we go. It seems like I'm a little bit rusty here with my Be Live handling. All right, I think that works. This is the screen in Trackify. You can see here I have a pixel here in one of our demo shops, and you can see here, here's the status that says server-side API is gray. So that means it's not activated, it's not enabled for this particular pixel. So if you have this kind of situation, you can simply just edit this pixel. You come in here and you see there's a checkbox here, a new checkbox that says enable server-side API events. And you simply just check that and click update. And after a few seconds, hopefully, unless I lost connection here while I was, no, it works. Okay, awesome. So now server-side API event turns green. And that means now all purchase events are sent through the browser, just like they used to be. But also in addition to that, they're being sent from the server directly. And now let's go over the details of how that actually works and what the benefits are for this. So here are the two scenarios, right? I have them kind of spaced out a little bit like this because there's a lot to unpack for each of them. So when the user completes the purchase in the browser, here's what happens, right? And you're probably familiar with that. The pixel event fires in the browser. You can see that in your shop when you have Facebook Pixel Helper installed and you go through your shop, you can see how the events are firing in Facebook Pixel Helper. You can see the event, the purchase event that is generated on the thank you page is piped over and it shows up in Pixel Helper, and then you can see it over in the Events Manager. You can also use the test tool in the Facebook Events Manager to see your own events come in there live in real time. And that's a great way to confirm that the pixel events are actually reaching Facebook when they're fired in the browser. So this is what happens when they're in the browser. Now, there are some problems that can happen with those browser events. And we're going to go over the specific results of what exactly happens. So let's move this a little bit here and let's look in detail at the possible problems here. So number one, the user could prevent the Facebook Pixel from firing because they have an ad blocker installed. Okay. Or it's also possible to opt out on the Facebook side with your profile from being tracked with the Facebook Pixel in any websites. So if either of those conditions are met, the browser event is not going to work. It's just not going to get to the Events Manager, and Facebook is going to suppress it. Okay, it can also happen that the browser suppresses the pixel events. This is particularly current right now and has been for a while in the ongoing war between Apple and Facebook, where Apple-supported devices and Apple-supported browsers have been disabling the tracking feature that sends the Facebook Pixel. So a good example for that is on an iPhone device, on any iPhone device, the Safari browser that is installed as a separate app or as a standard app on an iPhone device, that Safari browser does not currently send any Facebook Pixel events through to Facebook. It suppresses them, right? So just so you're not overly alarmed by that, that is actually not that terrible because another iteration of the Safari browser still sends the event. And let me just explain that quickly. When you're on an iPhone, when you're in Facebook, usually you have the Facebook app installed. And the Facebook app uses the Safari browser, but that iteration of the Safari browser is called the in-app browser for Safari, for the Facebook app. And that iteration of the app or of Safari is actually still sending the events. So that's a little bit confusing because you have two different types, two different models, if you will, of Safari in typical iPhone devices that have current or past operating systems installed, right? So you have the in-app browser Safari that pops up when you click on a link inside the Facebook app, and then you have the Safari browser that's a separate browser app. So if you open something in that, there are no Facebook Pixel events getting fired there, so that's suppressed. All right, so that's Safari, but then there's a lot of buzz going on about iOS 14, which is supposedly going to suppress Facebook Pixels in general for the entire device. So that won't even fire Pixel events and just really severely disrupt trackability. And that's what all the panic is about. You saw probably Zuckerberg's post about how he expects network traffic, the ad network traffic and revenue to go down because of that. So it's a really big war that is going on between Facebook and Apple. And we are kind of in the middle of that because we have to worry about how is this going to affect our tracking? How is that going to affect our retargeting, right? So that's the big worry about that. So this is this obstacle here. Browser suppresses the pixel, right? That can happen. And then the browser events will not get through and you won't see any events in Events Manager for that type of situation. Now, another situation is regulations, right? GDPR for Europe, CCPA for California. If those regulations are properly implemented, they can also, if that's an app or whatever, however you have that implemented, they can also lead to suppressing pixel events or at least depersonalizing pixel events, so you have less bang for your buck in terms of being able to track. And then, of course, there can also be just simple natural causes. For example, the user leaves the thank you page too quickly and the pixel event doesn't have time to fire and be generated. In that same realm, it could also, just any disturbance that happens on the internet. It is into the internet and events are being sent from one place to another, from one browser to another, and some of them get dropped somewhere along the line. So that does happen. And if the user leaves the thank you page too quickly and any of these other possible problems here happen, then you're going to have missing events on Facebook for your purchase conversions. So let's look at the results for these. As I said, they're going to be events that are missing. And of course, when events are missing, you're also going to have missing reporting. Okay, so the reporting on these is also going to be missing. And of course, we're always most interested in reporting for the Ads Manager report because that's where we can actually tie our results together with the ads that originated the traffic, right? All right. Okay, so that's it. That's it. That is all there is to know, and just a quick summary about the pixel events that are firing in browsers and the possible problems that can happen. And now let's move over. So this is what happens in the user's browser. Now, the purchase was placed, the order was placed, and the order comes into Shopify. And here what happens is the server-side event at that time is sent to Facebook. So it's triggered, the event is triggered not in the user's browser when the user is present and actually completes an action in the browser, and then the tracking script fires indicating that this action has been completed, but rather the event is sent directly to Facebook when the order comes into Shopify. So we basically get a notification from Shopify that a new order was placed, and at that time we generate a purchase event and send that directly to Facebook in the API format that is called the server-side API, right? So that's going to be a slightly different purchase event, but it's going to be an event that summarizes the order and gets in there like that. All right, so let's look at this the same way as we have on the other side. I think that one is not supposed to be here. So there's also going to be some problems here, and there's also going to be some results. So let's look at the problems first. So we have kind of like a before and after. So all of the browser event problems that we talked about before, all of them that we mentioned here, they don't exist anymore, because now nothing depends on what the user is doing in the browser anymore. Okay, so this is completely separate here. There are two separate worlds. The browser world has everything to do with what kind of settings the user has in the browser, in additional plugins or apps that affect the browser, or in their preferences in all kinds of additional apps and settings. None of that matters for the way that the server-side purchase events are being generated. Okay, so none of the browser event problems exist. And there is a new problem here, and that is the matching problem. So matching happens, and this is kind of where attribution comes from in Ads Manager. Matching happens by being able to identify the Facebook user who has taken an action in your paid ads, and then match that event that is coming from the browser, or in this case from the server, match that to that Facebook profile and say, okay, that is the same person who clicked on that ad, so we're going to be able to attribute this event to the ad that they clicked on or that they viewed through, okay? And there are generally speaking two methods of matching and identifying the Facebook user. One is by having all the Facebook profile identified because the user is logged into Facebook. Obviously, they're logged into Facebook when they're clicking on a Facebook ad. They're logged into Facebook at that time. And then when they open a compatible browser that doesn't purposely disconnect that connection, then Facebook also knows that this user is the same person who clicked on the Facebook ad because they have the Facebook user ID still available, and match that with the Facebook event that is sent to the browser. So normally, in the normal situation where the user clicks on a Facebook ad and then makes conversions in your Shopify store, the Facebook login is available as a portion, as a hidden portion, but it's available to Facebook as a portion of the browser event. So when that connection exists and the user is logged in, that is the best, safest, and most certain way for Facebook to identify the user and then match the conversion action that is signaled by the event with the attribution action that is the click or the view on the paid ad. All right, and so that is done with a Facebook ID, and that is generally in 80-85% of all cases is true for events that fire in the browser. And the Facebook ID, the logged in user, obviously is not present in the server when the server fires the event. And so therefore, this piece of identification and matching criteria cannot be included in the server-side event, right? So that's a small drawback. And what the server-side events do in in contrast, to make up for that deficiency, is they kind of fall back to a matching criteria that is also used in a similar way in what you probably know or have heard of as advanced matching. Okay, so advanced matching can also happen in the browser events, because, so in this case, let's say the user is not logged into Facebook and they're coming from a Google search, they're clicking over to your ad or to your website, be that an ad or not, doesn't matter. And now they're on the website and a Facebook Pixel event is generated for them, but Facebook can't identify them through Facebook user ID because they're not logged into Facebook. All right. Now, when you fire a purchase event, at least that is the case with Trackify, it's using advanced matching by way of sending certain personal data along with the purchase event and also some other events, but let's focus on the purchase event, right? So personal data such as email address, phone number, location, and things like that are included as the parameters of the purchase event, and they can help Facebook match and find the correct Facebook user and match it with those advanced matching criteria. So let's not forget, the most advanced way of matching, the surest, best, most certain way of identifying the user is this. And in that sense, this advanced matching criteria is a bit of a misnomer. But the point here is that it pitches in all cases where the Facebook user ID is not obvious to Facebook, is not already included, then Facebook can look at these other criteria of personal data, and it can use that to try and match the Facebook user to this event, right? And so that is a similar mechanism as what we're using in the server-side events. So there are several personal data points that are being generated and sent with the order, and we take them from the order and send them with the server-side purchase events, and that helps Facebook match the user and then identify them and help attribute those sales. So this is also a similar criteria that is used, like when you're setting up an offline conversion, or simply when you upload an email list of buyers. That's also very similar. But the advanced matching criteria that we're sending along with the server-side events actually have a very high match rate. So that's an awesome effect of that as well. All right, now let's look at the results. Let's see what all we're going to get here with the server-side events. So number one is we're going to get all events, right? So for every single order, there's going to be a server-side event sent over to Facebook, right? So that's number one. Everything is there. Nothing is dropped. That basically goes to reiterate, all these browser problems that could lead to missed events. They don't exist. So you get all events. And secondly, the results are deduplicated. So in this case, number one, you don't have to worry about if events are double fired, if they, for whatever reason, if they double up, that doesn't matter because Facebook deduplicates them. And that is not only true for the server-side events, that's also true for browser events that are fired for the same conversion as the server-side events, okay? And that's really, really important, because if you look at this in combination, what we're doing here and the way this is supposed to work is that the server-side events complement and supplement the browser events, right? So you're still going to fire purchase events for every thank you page that comes up in the browser, for every transaction that gets completed. But then you're also going to fire server-side events for those same purchases. And so what happens is that a lot of them are going to be doubled up because they fire in the browser, but they also fire from the server. And some that were missed in the browser are now also firing in the server, so they can get mashed together in the end, and you're going to have an event for every purchase that happened, for every order that happened. So that's the main takeaway here. And it does have to be implemented, carefully, so that Facebook can actually deduplicate correctly between server-side events that may be duplicated, but most importantly, between browser events and server-side events that fired for the same conversion, so that you don't get doubles all the time, because most of the time you have a browser event, but you also have a server-side event. So that's very, very important. And as far as Trackify goes, that also makes it really important to stick with the Trackify integration, and not all of a sudden fire a Shopify, keep the Shopify pixel installed, and fire events in Shopify, because there we cannot match that. We cannot send a criteria that can deduplicate efficiently between the server-side events that we're sending and the purchase events that are sent through Shopify. Okay, so let's look at the other channels here, and then I'm done with this, and we're going to look at some questions if you have any. So one really cool thing is that getting all events does not even just limit you to the events that are placed through the Shopify checkout and coming in through Shopify, through the online store, but rather you're also going to get events, server-side purchase events for all these other channels. Anything, if you have sales through eBay that are connected and are getting piped into Shopify, we're going to fire a server-side event, purchase event for those orders. If you have an Amazon channel and you're getting them into Shopify for fulfillment, we're going to fire a server-side event for that order. If you have recurring orders, this is a really cool one. Every time you get recurring orders processed, we're going to fire for each of them, for each recurring payment, we're going to fire a new server-side purchase event. And that is awesome for several different reasons that we're going to go through in future Facebook Lives. I don't want to make this one too long. We're already on for half an hour. Also, manually entered orders, right? We have several users that are taking orders over the phone, or they're following up and calling back abandoned carts. If they have phone numbers, they're calling them back, and then they end up manually entering orders. And even for those, we're firing server-side events. And all of them, because of this advanced matching criteria here, or the way that we're sending personalized personal data with the server-side events, because of that, Facebook can match these orders to Facebook ads. So if someone, 7 days ago or 28 days ago or whenever, clicked on a paid ad, a paid impression of your Facebook post, and later places an order by phone, and you put it in here, there would never be a purchase event for that order just from the browser, right? So these purchase events can only ever come from the server-side events. And Facebook can attribute that, right? It doesn't matter if the pixel event or the server-side event fires in direct relation to an action that happens, right then and there on Facebook. But the way that attribution works in the Ads Manager reports is that even in past days, if someone clicked on an ad several days ago and now they're making a purchase, that purchase is going to be attributed to the Facebook ads, and that it's there. And on top of that, you can now also build better custom audiences, right? Because you can now have all these people here, all these people that place orders in other channels that happen somewhere else than on your thank you page. So where there is no browser event, but now that there's a server-side event, you can actually include them. They're going to get included in the custom audiences when you're building a custom audience for purchase events. So that's all very, very awesome stuff. Like I said, it's a true lifesaver and game changer for our users that, particularly if you have other channels going, if you have recurring orders, if you enter orders manually, there's obviously, some bang for the buck that some users get more than others, just because, if you don't take any recurring orders, well, then you're not going to benefit from this partial feature. But overall, it's just an absolute awesome effect on your overall results, on the tracked events, on the attributed events, and it's just awesome. So with that said, I want to leave you a little bit of a cliffhanger for the next Facebook Live on server-side events. And in that one, we're going to look at how you actually see server-side events show up in Facebook in the Events Manager. We're going to take a look at how you can verify them and make sure. And there are actually several reporting tools built in straight into the Events Manager. And we're going to go over that in the next Facebook Live. I'm going to try to schedule that for the same time tomorrow, just straight at noon Central. That's 1 p.m. Pacific. No, sorry, 1 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be 10 a.m. Pacific. So I think that's a good time. I'm going to set that up right after this one. And that's what we're going to talk about then. All right. So in the meantime, there's a question here from Andy. Let me see if I can show this so we can read it. All right. That's doesn't quite fit on here, but thanks a lot for your question. Andre, sorry, I'm probably messing this up. Okay. So I guess those are 3 questions more or less. Let's go one at a time. Is it possible to use server-side events for purchases only or other events as well? View content, add to cart, etc. So the answer to that question is theoretically, it might be possible to use them for other events as well, but there are a couple of obstacles. Number one, you would need to get notifications from Shopify about what kind of actions happen in the front end of the shop, right? So when an order is placed, that's an obvious signal that is easy to get. But views of product pages, there's no way to get that in real time or near real time to get that from Shopify. The next obstacle is if you don't send any advanced matching criteria, any personal data that you have available, then with the event, then it becomes a lot more difficult to actually attribute that to ads. And it couldn't be used for audience building either, because audience building also requires that Facebook can identify the Facebook users. So with that said, we are looking at the possibility to send server-side events for when an order is first created, like when the checkout is initiated and the user has first entered some information. So as soon as it becomes, as soon as some personal data becomes available from the Shopify side, and as soon as we can effectively grab events, in real time or shortly after they happen, then it makes sense to turn them into server-side events. But until then, it just doesn't make any sense, because you're going to miss attribution and personalization on the data that you can send with the server-side events, and it's also very difficult to get notification that these events happened on the server side. So you could, on the other hand, you could say, well, why not just set up a tracking script where Trackify or the app just sends an internal event like we do for our Trackify analytics right now, right? And then just generate a server-side event from that without or in addition to sending the browser event. And that's a pretty good idea, and we might actually look at that further down the line. The only obstacle there is that chances are, if the Facebook script or the Pixel event script is suppressed from the browser, then chances are that other tracking scripts are going to be suppressed as well. So that would be a likely obstacle to that concept working. All right, let's look at the next question here. Number 2, most of my Pix events are lost when I drive traffic through Manychat. Only about 20% get attributed to Facebook ads. That is kind of a strange thing. That should not happen. I mean, it's like if you're sending traffic through Manychat, I'm assuming what you mean by that is that you send follow-up messages with links, and then they click on that, and then it's traffic that comes from Manychat to your page rather than going directly from Facebook. So what I would look at there is a couple of things. The first question is, why are you losing attribution? And so it could be that when Manychat is active in the Facebook chat app, in the first Facebook Messenger app, that at that point, when they click on the link, they open a browser, right? And so the question is, what kind of browser are they opening? Are they opening the Safari in-app browser, which is the same as when they're in the Facebook app? And does that Safari in-app browser suppress Facebook Pixel events? If that's the case, then that's a good explanation for, let's say you have a funnel or a workflow where you send a link through Manychat. They see it in the Facebook Messenger app. They click on it. Now what happens next? What kind of browser opens there? That's the first question. But presumably, whatever browser that is takes them to your product page, and it should fire a view content event. But the question is, do they do that at that point, right? So Messenger native browser, yeah. So you'd have to look at is the event available there? And the way to do that, let me actually just show that real quick. Let me bring this over here. This is just a quick view on, we are here in the events manager for a specific pixel. And what I wanted to show you here is the test tool. Okay, over here is the test tool. And what you can do here, let's see, I think we can do this right here. Let's clear all this. And then once it's cleared, you can put a new website in here. I'm just going to put, yeah, that's the correct pixel. So I'm just going to put the address for this shop into this. There's some possibility that this is not set up correctly, but yeah, I'm just looking at Facebook Pixel Helper here. So Facebook Pixel Helper shows that the pixel is here, and it just sent a page view. So in this case, you should be able to see this page view here as well. Yes, and you are. So now, the cool thing about this test tool is that it filters out only the events. Let me actually minimize my own view here so you can see better. Oops. All right. So in this test tool here, you will see only the events that you generate yourself in the front end, right? So what you can do here is you can send a link to Messenger. Let's just see if this can be done, if this is a good idea. But I don't know how this works in. All right, let's do this. I'm going to go on my iPhone, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring. I'm just going to put Messenger. All right. I'm just going to put a link into Messenger. I'm just going to send a link to my daughter in Messenger. And then I'm going to open Messenger. Let's see. Did it go through? So anyway, you get the gist. The point here is I'm putting a link into Messenger so that I can click on it. It's somehow my windows are slow here. Facebook is not very happy with me. All right. All right. The browser is balking at doing this as fast. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, great. Okay, so now let's check this out. we're still looking at the test tool. And what I'm doing now is I'm clicking on the link that I just posted into Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and this opens up. And there it is. Okay. So in this case, this is proof that the Facebook pixel is firing and that it is also it contains the personalized information that is necessary to identify the user, right? So that's the cool thing about the test tool. Since it filters out only events that I generate personally, when an event shows up here, that must mean that I personally generated that. So I just generated an event through the Messenger app by clicking on the link that was in the Messenger app, and I see that the event shows up here. Okay, so you can do that too. You can do the same thing. And just test it out by placing a link to your website into your Messenger or through Manychat, you know, whatever the case may be, and then click on that link in different devices, and you'll see whether you have those devices accessible here or not. Now I'm going to click on it. You're in another browser, and that opens here as well. So anyway, you get the gist. I don't want to spend too much time on belaboring that point. All right. So let's look at the third part of the question. What Trackify plan allows you to use server-side API? The server-side API events are actually quite resource intensive, so we cannot long-term offer that on any of the lower plans. So we're going to reserve that for the time being for the marketer plan. At this moment, they're active. You can enable them in the business plan. That is the plan that is currently $29.95 a month. And the marketer plan will be the one that goes. And just so, I mean, that's the plan that they'll be available for. When we were working with our kind of first iteration or pre-beta iteration, we actually made it work so that Trackify supported server-side API events that were fired by through Zappify, through Zapier. It's not called Zappify. Through Zapier, through a Zap on Zapier. And we heard then a lot of complaints that said, whoa, yeah, but that gets kind of pricey because Zapier has actually kind of like a rate limit on how many events you can send through that. And, even like medium busy shops were getting like really high bills from Zapier. And so that, goes to show that it's a very useful feature. It's a very beneficial feature, but it's also resource intensive on our side. So that's why eventually, after an initial phase of introducing it to anyone who has a business plan or want to try it out, we're pretty sure that you'll see the value and that you'll be happy to upgrade to the marketer plan for the benefit of having the server-side events available long-term. Good. Okay, so with that, I'm going to see you back tomorrow, and we're going to talk about how to monitor the server-side events and really what impact they have on, how many more events are actually going to be available to you in in Events Manager. And then, of course, that translates into much higher attribution rates in the Ads Manager as well. So I look forward to seeing you back tomorrow. Thanks for watching this Facebook Live. Tomorrow, same place, same time, 12 noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And I'll see you back for another episode of server-side events. What are they and what can they do for you? Thanks a lot for watching.